G'day everyone. Round 3 of our lightning talks. We have Ian Buchanan, who's going to be talking about Bitbucket Pipelines, serverless CI/CD that will save your life. Please welcome him to the stage.
Thank you. All right, let's dive in. So hopefully you heard the wonderful announcement this morning about Bitbucket Pipelines. So one of the things I want to start talking about is branching. It's so easy, anybody can do it, right? But historically, there's been a problem that when you branch, you have to merge again. And branching, and therefore merging, mean integration. Historically, that has meant for far too many people, integration like a car crash. So an integration episode is what happens when you have these pains of integrating code again. Now, fortunately, a lot of people have leaped over a generation of these kinds of pains. New version control tools like Git have helped make it much easier to avoid the problem of having long-running branches that you have to integrate again. So, there was a time when there was this idea of a configuration manager, and that person's job was to be a kind of air traffic controller for all of the changes that people were making in their code lines. But fortunately, folks in the Agile camp found that they could replace this person acting in this role with more automation. And so really, that's where continuous integration was born. Now, the practice of continuous integration is pretty well known these days. So maybe we've leaped, we are now in a generation where people don't know what these kinds of integration episodes were. So we're kind of stuck with the name continuous integration anyway. So even though we're stuck with this outdated term, and we have these better tools, we can merge code more often and have few of the problems. There are a couple things that really help make this much easier also. So there are tools that do continuous integration as servers. So the things like Bamboo that have been around for ages make that much easier. They're less, or they're more pervasive. But also automated testing tools have become quite pervasive. So for pretty much every language, you can find the tools that allow you to do automated testing. So it's free and essentially pervasive. So even if now the integration episode is all but extinct, we've smoothed this kind of bubble out in our wallpaper of software development, but we've revealed another. And it's the one that I propose here, the idea of a configuration episode. So it's what happens after members of a team have been working on their own development environment for quite some time, isolated from production, and then they try to deploy their code. So during the time that the developers were doing their development, they've made changes in the database configuration or added some components or introduced other new services. Meanwhile, operations has patched older versions of the database for a security concern, or tuned the web server for production performance, or added management tools to the operating system. And so the environments have drifted apart, leading to the anti-pattern of works on my machine. So a new generation of Agile developers have recognized this problem as very similar to the integration episodes. And they've stretched the CI/CD tooling into deployment and introduced new disciplines, calling the practice behind it all continuous delivery. So just like continuous integration helped reveal integration problems before they became big and painful to fix, continuous delivery has helped reveal configuration problems before they are big and painful to fix. Instead of using documentation to describe these configuration changes to other people, there are now tools that precisely specify the configuration so that it can be automated. So this makes it much easier to create and maintain more production-like environments, make them on demand, but also makes it possible to propagate change between these different kinds of environments. So again, when it gets faster and easier to learn, the knowledge becomes more pervasive throughout the industry, becomes almost just well-established developer practice. And so that's how, I think that's where we are today, that this is a practice growing through the industry. So, but will this smooth the whole wallpaper? No, not yet. I think just like we can see in this picture that there are services or there are buildings sticking out of the cloud. In the cloud, we see that there are services that we can consume, but we don't know what's underneath, right? These are other people's computers down there somewhere. We just don't get to see those. So just as we as an industry thought we had all of the tools that we needed to manage the configuration, and now we have just discovered that we have to run things in these other environments, and we don't have the controls that we thought we once had, or that we did have when we were running these machines ourselves. So, and more than that, we used to be able to make certain assumptions that don't hold in the cloud. So there are computing resources that are distributed across different data centers that we didn't have to deal with before. All that learning about integration and configuration episodes was built on an assumption that we control the whole infrastructure stack. But in the cloud, we don't. So to me, this only hints at what cloud episodes we have yet to suffer. So, but one thing I believe is that we can reveal cloud problems sooner when we embrace the cloud. And that means using a CI/CD tool that is built from the ground up for the cloud. So I'd like to talk about a few of these kinds of symptoms of cloud episodes to see if any of you have hit these yet. The first one would be time. I think we see that the more that we're building monoliths or big applications, and then we try to put that across into some other network, what used to take a long time is now even going to take longer. And sometimes that means that the builds start to collide, they pile up, we start to have to wait longer and longer to get results for each change that we're making, even as we're trying to make changes faster. So another aspect, so if that's a problem that you have, that's one symptom of you might be having a cloud episode. Another is that if your agents for CI and CD are hand configured, you're still taking the time to put specific tools on each of the agents that runs, then you're still thinking about all of those things as pets rather than cattle in the way that we would in a cloud world. And another problem I think that we might see in this kind of cloud episode problem is that if we only have one pipeline, many times that means there are still multiple builds happening. We get a certain set of initial results from one repo or from another repo or from one sub-project or one library. But when we have to bring all of those together into one pipeline where deployment is in a strict series and therefore there's really only one way to get to production, then we might also be having a cloud episode there, because then the various pieces that are coming together can collide with each other as well. So this is where I think I would introduce the idea of cloud delivery, and almost kind of to say continuous delivery needs to be thought of in a slightly different context for the cloud. And so the kinds of things that I would apply there is let's do an Agentotomy, which is like cut out the agents, because those are, I think, remnants of an age where we had only on-premise. Another would be pipeline as code. We want to be able to treat this pipeline as something that we can manage in the same way that we do the rest of our code, and as web resources. So an Agentotomy is when we take this away, we can manage this in the Bitbucket Pipelines world with the Docker containers that we get to specify in our code. So it makes it very easy to control the configuration without having agents. Pipelines as code means that we get to version this stuff alongside of the other code that's changing. We aren't bottlenecked behind a set of plugins or other types of configurations that need to change. And then we have web resources. So this means instead of thinking about everything as files, we manage things in the web way with APIs and with uploading things into the cloud. So that's how I hope you understand Bitbucket Pipelines as the cure to cloud episodes. And I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ian. That's the end of round 3 of our lightning talks. You got 10 minutes till the last one. Thanks, everyone.